Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lecture we'll look at certain functions that we can perform on numbers. Before we do that, I want to show you how we can convert one number data type to another. We'll mainly look at how we can convert a number from an integer data type to a float or vice versa. Let's say we define a number 5 and store it in a variable x, and to know the data type of this number we can simply say type of x. So this is the type function, type, and then we pass our number. In this case we passed our object x, which holds the number 5. So integer. We could have also said type of, let's say, the number 5. We get integer. And in order to convert this integer data type to a float, for instance, we can simply use the float function. All you have to do is use the float function and then pass the number. For instance, we can pass x. So this method will convert x to a float data type. So 5.0. We could have also said float, convert 5 float. And we can save this in another variable, let's say y. Now if we call y, we have 5.0 and type of y is a float. Great. Now let's have another number and store it in a variable a, and let's say it's 3.45, and type of a is a float, and we can convert a float data type to an integer by using the int function. So we say integer and then pass our object, in this case a, and now it's an integer 3. Notice here the 2 digits after the decimal are dropped because integers are either positive or negative numbers and 0, and they don't have any decimal points. We could have also said integer, convert the number 3.45, and we get 3. And we can save this in another variable, let's say b, and if we call the type of b, it's an integer, and b now holds the number 3. Great. With this, let's see some of the math functions that we have in Python. We have functions like absolute value, ceiling, exponent, log, floor, modulus, power function, the square root function, and so on. So we'll try to look at each of these one by one. And most of these functions are in a module called math. This is a module that contains a lot of mathematical functions. So in order to use any of these functions, we need to import the math module, and we can simply import it by using the import statement. So we say import math. So that will import the math function, the math module, and then we can reference this math module to use the functions in it. Let's start by looking at the absolute value function, the ABS function. So this absolute value function returns the absolute value of a number. So absolute value of a number is either 0 or a positive number. So for instance, the absolute value of 0 is 0, and the absolute value of a negative number, let's say negative 8, is positive 8, and the absolute value of a positive number is a positive number. ABS absolute value of negative 4.2 will give us 4.2. So that's the absolute value function. It gives us 0 or a positive number. Next, let's look at the ceiling method. The ceiling method returns the upper value of a given number. As I mentioned earlier, most of these functions are in the math module. So in order to use them, we first have to import the math module, and then we can use the functions or methods in the math module. And the way we do it is as follows. We have once we import the module, we have the module dot and then name of the function. So in this case, ceiling or method. Name of the function or method is ceiling, ceil. So math dot ceil. Then we pass the number. Let's say 23.2. So in this case, the ceiling is 24. So ceiling is, in this case, is 24. So if we run this, we get 24. Math that ceiling of, let's say, 23.001, it's still 24. So you have to distinguish this method, this ceiling method, from the round method. Here we're not rounding, we're taking, if there is any decimal after this point, if there is any numbers after the decimal, we'll be taking the next integer. Basically, that's what ceiling is. So math that ceiling of, let's say, 23.9999, we get 24. So we get the upper integer. And that takes us to another method known as floor. So floor is the opposite of ceiling. It gives us the lower integer of that given number. In order to use it, we say math that floor. Then we pass our number. Let's say, for instance, 23.3. That will be 23. Math that floor. And then if we pass 23.999, we still get 23, because we'll be taking, it takes the lower integer value of the given number. Okay, math that floor, let's say 23.5, we get 23. And it works the same way for negative numbers. If we pass negative 3.4, we get negative 4. Math, and same thing for the ceiling method. It works for negative numbers. If we pass 3.4, we get negative 3. Great. Next, let's look at the exponent function. So this exponent function, let's say exponent of some number x, this will give you the result of e to the power of x. So basically this is the same as saying e to the power of x. Let's see some examples of the exponent method. So math that exponent, and then let's pass 2. So that's the same as saying e to the power of 2, which is around 8, somewhere between 8, so 7.38. So the value for exponent is 2.17, I believe, 2.7, and it goes on. So it's somewhere around that, 2.7. So that's the same as saying 2.7 squared. So 7.29. I was close. Okay, let's look at some more examples. Math.exponent. Let's see. 7. So that will give us 1096.63. We can also pass negative numbers. Math.exponent. Say negative 2.5. We get 0.08. Math.exponent. Let's say negative 123. We get 3.8 times 10 to the power of negative 54, and so on. That's the exponent function. This takes us to another method known as logarithm, and that returns the natural logarithm of a given number. In order to use that, we say math.log, then we pass the number. Let's say logarithm of 2, we get 0.693. Math.logarithm of 10, we get 2.302. Math.logarithm of, let's say, 234, we get 5.45. There's also another logarithm function, which is to the base 10. We can use that by calling the math module, that, and then log 10, and we pass the number, whatever number we want. So this is logarithm to the base 10. For instance, if you say math logarithm 10 of 10, that will give you 1, and math that logarithm of 1000 log 10, then we pass, let's say, 1000, that will give you 3. Logarithm math that logarithm to the log 10 logarithm of, let's say, 2, that will give you 0.301. So that's logarithm to the base 10. That's how we distinguish it from the logarithm to the natural logarithm. And math log 10, if you want to find out logarithm of 1, I think it's 0. Yep. And if you try to find the logarithm of 0 or a negative number, you'll get an error. So if you try 0, you get an error. It says math domain error. Similarly, if you try to find the logarithm of a negative number, you get an error. So be careful with those. So these are some of the functions that we have for numbers, and in the next lecture we'll see some more functions. Thank you, everyone.